Hi! Welcome to Corona Cartoons, formerly Venture Bros of the ATH Network. My titles change every week. With me this week to talk about possibly one of the greatest shows ever made, we have Mr. Matt Dykes coming back. Hi, Matt!
Hello! Welcome! Hello from England. It's lockdown as well. Woo.
Matt, you get to have the very, very high honor of being the first person to be on 2 episodes of Corona Tunes that I'm not married to.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
when's our marriage again?
Tuesday.
It's a green card marriage, though.
Yeah, on Tuesday. And then new to the show this week, we have Mr. Adam Slutsky, who I've known since my freshman year of college, going way, way back.
Hey, Bryan. Hi. Yeah, college, man. That was a long time ago when we weren't living in hell, in just a waking nightmare all the time, every day. So that was fun.
It was a little different back then. You were just down the hall from me, and
sure.
Then I would just nerd out with you and your roommate Jordan about, stuff.
Yeah.
It's mostly Halo at the time. And
oh, man. Hey, come on. Halo 2. Let's get your shit started.
Yeah, Halo 2. When you walked in on me playing Halo 2, saw that I was playing the story, got mad at me, and then left. And I didn't see you for like a day.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
You didn't want anything spoiled for you. I remember that vividly. I'm like, I'm playing Halo 2. And you're like, what the fuck? And you walked out.
Oh, I'm such a good person. Yeah, that sounds about right. Surprised I ever talked to you again.
I am too, but now you only talk to me on the internet when you're multiple states away, so I get it.
That's fair.
And then we have Mr. Ben Kurstin's on.
I'm here in breezy, beautiful Chicago, living it up during the Corona crisis. It's been wonderful.
It's a fun place to be in a Corona crisis in the middle of a city.
Yeah, no, it's great. No one in our building wears masks, but me and my fiance do. And people always want to pet our dog, which makes it very difficult because, I don't want to be rude and say, please don't touch my dog, but I don't know where your hands have been.
I think that's fair. Like, we have that with our son, Corin. He wants to go run up to every dog he sees, and we're like, no, you can't do that. You can't pet dogs right now. I think it's fair. They should be conscious about it.
You're gonna give him some sort of problem with dogs in the future.
Yeah, he's not gonna be the most friendly to dogs. I can't say hi. It's just not the way. I really hope not. He fucking loves dogs. But yeah, so when I decided, I was casually thinking to myself about doing a Batman the Animated Series episode for Corona Cartoons. I know I talked about doing a different episode this week, and that just didn't really come together. And then Matt randomly messaged me like, hey, if you feel like doing an episode on Batman, I would be into it. Like, I was just fucking thinking of that. So then I had to think of the 2 people I know of who are the most connected to Batman, and one of which is no longer that connected to Batman. But when I remember from college, he really was. So I had Adam on. And then I thought of my other friend who's obsessed with Batman, if not more than me, and that was Ben. So these were the 2 people that had to be on this episode. And then Matt, because he brought it up.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually had me on the episode that I brought up. It was like, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. You're not going to be on it, though.
I'm going to go find people more interesting than you.
Cold-blooded.
I mean, I wouldn't blame you if that was the reason, because I am pretty boring.
Well, I mean, my guilt would have been too strong. It's like, all right, I'm just going to do a show with Adam and Ben. And Matt, just enjoy listening to it. You like the show.
So I'm on the here because of guilt.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
And for diversity, a bunch of American accents that sucks to listen to.
I mean, don't give away my secret, Adam. I had him on a bunch of episodes of Venture Bros for that very reason.
Ah, that's fair.
Yeah, but there was someone on the Discord thing was talking about that really annoying British guy. So oh wait, that was me.
Should I just put on a British accent for the duration?
Please do.
If you can. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't want to ask, but if you're offering,
yeah, all right, it's fine. I can do that.
Okay, so for this one we did kind of like how we did, I don't even remember what show that was. We did it for Doug and Angry Beavers and a few other ones where we all just kind of picked an episode like a 2-parter that we liked, and we're going to try to use that to talk about the episodes and talk about the show in general and just kind of see where it takes us. So let's go around the quote-unquote table, if we will, and say what we picked. I picked Joker's Favor, and I will get into why in a little bit. Matt, what about you?
I picked Heart of Ice.
Adam?
I picked Read My Lips.
Cool. And Ben?
I picked Feet of Clay Part 1 and 2.
Perfect.
Cheated.
Oh, and I watched so many other episodes in preparation for this as well.
I watched everyone that we had on the table here today, and then I watched 4 or 5 other ones that I just kind of let run. But those I wasn't fully paying attention to. It's just that as soon as I got started, I didn't really want to turn it off, so I just let it go for a while.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I sort of realised that all of them apart from Read My Lips is on disc 2 of the Blu-ray set as well. So I just kind of ran through disc 2 of the Blu-ray set and then stuck the other disc in and watched the other ones.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it. I pay for the DC Universe app, so I'm able just to stream everything because I'm crazy and I pay for that thing. But it's nice, really, really pretty version of it. I think it's the same version that Matt watched. I think the DVDs still look good, but the nice high reses are very fun to watch.
I mean, you could, like, comparing them together, like the color, what color there is there is a bit more sort of vibrant, and just the animation styles is a lot sharper.
Having watched the DVDs, because I bought mine years ago, you can definitely tell that it's a VHS up conversion, or I guess not even up. They just ripped it straight from the VHS. So, like, it looks fine. Like, it's what I remember from my childhood. But when you guys mentioned, oh, yeah, the Blu-ray, I'm like, oh, I'm sure that's way sharper because they probably went back to the originals and worked off of those instead of just a cheap conversion to make some money.
Yeah, I think they went on... I think they actually went back to the cells themselves, I think.
Really?
Jeez.
I'm not 100% positive on that one, but I do remember reading something somewhere about them, getting the cells together. So I believe they did. Because if it's anything like a lot of TV in the very late 80s and early 90s, it was probably edited on tape anyway. So it would have been there wouldn't have probably been an actual film negative out there for them to work from.
And it would also explain why it's so goddamn pretty now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a little rough around the edges, but that's just the time. That's just a different style of animation, but just colors and the look of it is just fantastic. But let's go kind of in reverse order here of what we just went and say why we picked these episodes. So Ben, why were you Feats of Claying?
So I think being a filmmaker, as I'm sure I know Bryan is, I know maybe some of you other guys are, it's easy to think of like the iconic things that really stick out to you. And when I think of Batman the Animated Series, I of course think of Mask of the Phantasm, which I would have picked, even though it's not an episode, but it is probably the best of the show because it is pretty incredible. But the Joker episodes are great. Obviously, all the villains really play well, but I just think of the couple of images from Feet of Clay of Clayface getting his arms ripped off, or a later episode, Mudslide, where he's like melting in the rain, and it's like Cronenberg level body horror in a children's show. And he talks about how he's in constant pain from a car accident he got into that ruined his face. That stuck with me. Like, I'm very much a filmmaker of like pain and misery because of things like that I experienced at age 7 and 8. And so Clayface might not be the best villain in the Rogues Gallery, but when I think back to the show, he's the one that stuck out to the most in terms of like his design, in terms of his origin story, and in terms of like just being a regular person who became a villain not out of like need to control the world or want money, but because he was in just terrible pain. And that to me speaks to Batman himself and to most of the Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, and the way they did Clayface in the show was the main reason I stayed a fan of him throughout my whole life. Like when they made him a main character in Detective Comics back like a few years ago, for quite a while, the main reason I was so excited about that was because of how much I loved him in the show. And now that he's in Harley Quinn and he's everywhere, I'm like, none of this would happen if he hadn't been done so well in that show fucking forever ago. Because that's why we all love him.
Well, it's like what they did with a lot of the characters. Like the reason I chose Heart of Ice is because of what they did with Mr. Freeze. They took these kind of silly B-C level villains and gave them more of a backstory. They gave them very tragic backstories as well, and it gave them a depth that they didn't really have before. People always say, the source material, they never get the comics right in films, things like that. Well, the animated series, I think, made the comics better for what they came up with in some respects.
They also were, all the shows were written by comics people, so that also helped a lot.
Hugely. You look at the behind the scenes stuff, and you can tell that everyone who worked there was a huge Batman fan.
You have Marv Wolfman writing episodes. Paul Dini wrote a ton of them. These guys are who's who in comics. Well, not who's who, but big names in comics. Let's keep moving through this. So, Adam, why were you on your wonderful, strange little episode?
It's after all these years, what's it been? It's been 25 years since I've watched the show. And this was the one that always stuck out to me. It's the one that I always think of when I think of the animated series. That and the Bane episodes, but mainly this one. I think, like you said, it's strange. It as a kid watching through the series, it kind of stuck out as it doesn't quite, it's not quite lockstep with the rest of the series. Because it's a little more comical while also being extremely twisted. And so I think more than anything, I picked it because I just wanted to watch it again. It struck me watching it again as well as being out there for a lot of different reasons this time around, which I can dive into later.
Yeah, I started watching yours, and then my son woke up from his nap, so I had to stop, and then I went back to it and just rewatched it from the beginning again. And even watching it the second time through, I'm like, this is just a strange episode all around. But I don't think in a bad way. I think it wears its strangeness on its sleeve in a way that's just a ton of fun.
Yeah.
It's very much a 30s gangster movie as well. The music and the way it's all put together, the spinning newspapers stuff. I'd forgotten all that part when I was rewatching. I was thinking, oh god, yeah, this is that episode.
It just reminded me how much I fucking love the ventriloquist. He's one of my favorite Batman villains, and I always just kind of because he's not used a lot, so he just kind of fades into the background every now and then. Whenever he comes around, I'm like, this guy's too fucking good.
Yeah. There's even a point where Alfred, I don't remember the line verbatim, but Alfred basically says, you've been up against some strange villains before, but this one, he makes a comment.
I think he says, takes the biscuit.
That's exactly what he says.
Yeah.
Such a British saying is that.
Matt, what about you?
So for me, Heart of Ice was just that one that, I don't know. I remember it from a kid. I had a Mr. Freeze action figure from the animated series, specifically because, the design of the character, but also something about him just, I don't know, it struck a chord. I think it's that sort of, that really tragic backstory he's got that they give him in the episode. The more, as I've grown older as well, the more I've appreciated it, and he is, it's, I can't really explain it. It's he's got this. It's part revenge. It's part sort of mourning, and it's also he is saying how he's emotionless and things like that. But he's clearly not. It's he's almost trying to fool himself that he's emotionless because his revenge has been driven by emotion, and it's just that interesting mixture of it all. And I just think, the episode itself is really good, and it's just one of those ones that every time I've watched it, I've thought this is so well written.
Yeah, and it's a lot in this animated series. It's usually my favorite interpretation, as far as performance goes, of most of these characters. But this one is, he's second best to Arnold, of course, but otherwise, he's fantastic.
It's the only one where I've, when they did Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin, I think that the only reason that they tried to bring that character into one of the major films was because of how well received it was in the comics, in the animated series. Sorry,
that's very possible. I don't remember how long this went on, or how long that movie came out after the show had been over, but
98, I think.
So the show had been over for a while.
Mr. Freeze was so well received, he got his own animated film. They had Mask of the Phantasm, then they did Sub-Zero, I think.
Yeah, it's Sub-Zero.
I've never seen that one. That one totally just went right by me. I've seen Mask of the Phantasm because I'm human. But yeah, no. I love Freeze. I think he's great. I think it was a solid episode. Freeze actually just led to my least favorite thing in DC Comics in a very long time, though, which I'm still a little bitter about, but it's okay. They woke up his wife, and she turned into a supervillain, and it was really fucking weird. Was not good.
Do not like, unsubscribe.
Oh, so for my episode, I picked Joker's Favor, and the reason I picked Joker's Favor is I've been reading Batman comics for a very, very long time. And I watched the show, I've seen all the movies, I'm a very big Batman fan. My favorite thing about the Joker is it's tough to say it's my favorite, but one of my favorite things about the Joker is seeing a story with him not really with Batman. Because I don't think you really get to see who the Joker is until you see how vicious he can be to people who aren't Batman. And you can kind of see then how he almost in a way pulls his punches with Batman because he wants to keep that relationship going because he loves Batman in the only way he knows how. So seeing him with somebody else I always find super interesting, and it's usually way more evil. And this one's kind of the same. I mean, it's definitely toned down for a kid's show, but it did remind me of a lot of stories that I've read in the books. And that's just that the Batman and the Joker are having a crazy night. The cops are involved. Joker's driving around and he cuts off some guy. And that guy's like, fuck it, I've had too much tonight. I'm going to go yell at him. How dare you? Oh, fuck, I'm yelling at the Joker. So the Joker pulls him over, creates a deal with him that, like, I'll let you live if you do me a favor whenever I need it. And 2 years later, he calls in that favor. And I think that entire storyline is just fascinating. It's horrifying. I love that the guy moves multiple states away and changes his name because he knows the Joker will still come after him. And just that impending fear that the guy had to have, I think, was just really cool. It always kind of stuck with me in a way that kind of freaked me out. And then, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe this is also the first time we ever meet Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I wrote that down as a note. Is like a first episode with a question mark. I meant to look it up, but I'm pretty certain it is because originally it was supposed to be the Joker dressed in drag, and then they came up with Harley Quinn.
Oh, huh.
So upon rewatching Joker's Favor, I hadn't seen it in 25 years, and I realized that it's interesting you picked that one because it's a fun little side story about the Joker, but I kind of read it in this rewatch as the Joker turning someone into himself.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it does remind me a little bit of, what's the Killing Joke a little bit.
Exactly. Where, like, the world is down on him, nothing's working out for him, and then the Joker, by the end, drives this guy near insanity to throw a bomb at his feet and kill both of them, which is very Joker, and thank God Batman was there, and it turned out to be a joke bomb anyway. But I think it could be read as very influenced by the Killing Joke because this guy really loses it when there's really nothing wrong with his life that's so bad.
Doesn't it speak more volumes that it was a joke bomb, though? Doesn't that say more that, like, Joker got in his head even farther? Like, the fact that he was willing to, like, put his life on the line to kind of freak the Joker out feels more Joker-esque than even killing the both of them.
Yeah, I mean, the Joker's just as likely to kill one of his own henchmen or, pull a prank on someone instead of killing him because he doesn't work within rhyme and reason.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really love seeing the Joker take on other people, and mostly because of things like that, like where he does try to turn them into himself, or he just tries to make them into the worst versions of themselves. So even if he's not trying to create a clone of himself, he's still making another bad person out there, and he just thinks that's hilarious.
Well, something else that's great in that episode is seeing how quickly the Joker swings from joy to, like, utter contempt and anger. When the guy goes to hand him his wallet and he thinks he's being robbed, the Joker goes from, like, furious that he would think he would rob him, like, why would you think I would do that, to just like, no, I just want your ID so I know where you live. And it's something that could be so easily overlooked. It's one of the things that I love about Mask of the Phantasm, and it makes me laugh every time I watch it, is how quickly he goes from, like, fuming at someone to making a joke. And like, Jack Nicholson never really pulled that off. Heath Ledger wasn't really trying to do that. And so it's the one place that the Joker seems the most authentic, I guess.
Ben, you just skipped over Jared Leto. He did a great job with that.
Did I skip over him? I don't remember him playing the Joker.
I mean, what's quite interesting though, it's like this is exactly why Mark Hamill's always sort of seen as the best Joker though, because he does all these elements of the Joker. He doesn't just sort of pick a little bit from here or a little bit from there. He does it all, really. Even in like a kid's animated show as well, he managed to get all the elements of the Joker in. I mean, I love when you look at the behind the scenes recording, everyone's there sitting down, and then there's Mark Hamill standing in the recording and like gesticulating like wildly and stuff like that. I mean, do you guys know who was originally cast as the Joker?
I honestly don't.
Casey
I didn't
Kasem. That's a total guess. I don't.
Nope.
I kind of wish it was Casey Kasem. That'd be an interesting fucking Joker.
So I found.
Bats, I've got you now.
Oh god, it was Tim Curry.
Oh wow.
And he was too creepy. But there is like somewhere in the Warner Brothers vault there will be the first Joker episode with Tim Curry's dialogue, because they recorded at least one full episode with Tim Curry's dialogue before they thought, nah, he's too creepy, we need to replace him.
I mean, I feel like that was... I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Mark Hamill's the best Joker out there, at least as far as animated goes. And I really wouldn't want anybody else to do it. But at the same time, Mark Hamill isn't that creepy in the first episode. By the time we get to the one that we're talking about today, he's way fucking creepier.
Yeah. But just think about Tim Curry, you know, when he was Pennywise the Clown and things like that.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know. That would have been fucking cool. I love Mark Hamill, but that would, in an alternate world, it'd be cool to see that.
Yeah. Well, Mark Hamill's also in my episode, which I didn't realise. Because
I watched... Who's he in yours?
Well, Ferris Boyle, yeah. Because I watched my episode twice. I watched it with the audio commentary as well, because there was an audio commentary for that episode, so I thought, oh, why not? And then when they're talking about, you know, Mark Hamill coming in, and he's a huge comic book fan, and he just wanted to be in the show as anyone. He didn't care. And at this point... They had all the villains so far cast, so they had the Joker, which was Tim Curry, and so they sort of gave him this script and said, "Oh, we've got this character here who we need a voice for." He's like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And he came in, and then when it didn't work out with Tim Curry, they asked him if he wanted to be the Joker as well. Yeah, but because Mark Hamill basically pursued them for any role, was how he sort of got the role of the Joker anyway. It also explains why he's been in loads of comic book stuff. Like, you know, he was in the Flash series in the 1990s, I believe.
Well, he's also on the CW one.
Yeah, well, he came back as the same character from that, but he originally was that character in the 1990s one, which I watched like one episode of, and my God, it was cheap.
I like the 90s show. It's cheap, but I think it's got a good charm to it. But him in the CW show, he had the best line of, I think, the entirety of the CW, where the Flash jumps into a room and gives everybody a shot to help them get cured of whatever the fuck thing he released in there. So he goes around to everybody's arms and gives them an injection, and then he stops and he stands right next to the trickster, and Mark Hamill just looks at him and goes, "How was that sanitary?" Fucking killed me. He's so good. So let's talk a little bit more about Heart of Ice. Ben, what about you? What did you think of Heart of Ice on your rewatch here?
So it's often cited as such a wonderful episode and really big and important. And I'm going to be honest, I was a little underwhelmed. It starts so strong with the red eyes in the darkness and him talking and holding the snow globe. And it ends great. In between the beginning and the end, it does sort of lag a bit. And I think it's a problem with some of the episodes in the series where they get really bogged down in sort of procedural stuff. It's still it's an A+ episode. But what really stuck out to me upon the rewatch was the sound design, specifically with how Mr. Freeze sounds.
Like his voice, or like his weapons, or
for me both. Like when you mentioned sound design, I was thinking, yeah, like the voice modulation they do on it and his weapon itself.
Yeah, I agree, and yeah, the voice is incredible. What I think my favorite part of the episode, besides obviously the big things of like how great Mr. Freeze has been redone in this and the beautiful design of the entire episode, as most of the episodes are, would be the little things that they foreshadow, where Alfred gives him the chicken noodle soup.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that he uses the soup to defeat Mr. Freeze. So when he gave him the soup, I thought, oh, it's a little joke about, you know, him getting a cold and things like that. Then I completely forgot that he still had it by the end of the episode. So when he pulls it out and smashed it over his head, I was like, oh my god, that's really good sort of setup and payoff thing. And I sort of like my head's jumping back into film school where we were learning about setups and payoffs and things like that, and studying Back to the Future for all the setups and payoffs that's in that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that so many of the episodes are written in a way that like everything comes full circle, that Batman ends up having to decide how to fight this villain, different because Mr. Freeze is 3 times stronger than him and can freeze him, and he's already seen how that works. So he uses this new tool, which is perfect for Batman because he's so smart and is always able to figure out what weaknesses the characters have. So I was pleasantly surprised that instead of a big fight and he freezes half the party or whatever, Batman just smashes the soup on his head and he's kind of done, and that's it.
It's also like the joke of when he gives him the soup. It's like, what is this, a smoke bomb? It's like, chicken soup. To fight a cold. Yeah.
Alfred never has a wasted line. Everything is a joke, everything is a quip, and then he's walking away with his tray. And it's like Creed in The Office. Like, you don't want too much of that character, just enough to say something to Bruce, to make him sort of smile, and then he walks out of the Batcave, and he's, I'm guessing, polishing the silverware.
So I just imagine he's sitting in a chair smoking a pipe going like, thank God he's gone for a little while.
I'm just going to read my book now.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot that calling someone a master is you call children instead of Mr. or Mrs. you say master. Bruce Wayne is a full-grown adult. He's still calling him Master Wayne. I think it's because he knows this is a kid he's dealing with, even at age 35.
Well, I think that's the thing, like, the relationship is very much father and son. 100%. I remember, I keep seeing this on Facebook every now and again. I haven't seen it for a while, but I'm sure it'll come back around. And it's basically a thing of, like, families, and it's making a point of, like, if there's 2 dads, it's still a family. If there's 2 mums, it's still a family. And then at the bottom, because it's like family. Then at the bottom, there's a butler and a young boy, and it's Batman.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But they are still a family, and I think it's that sort of thing. Like, I'm not a parent, but my mum and dad do this to me all the time. They still think of me as their kid when I'm 32 years old. They still think of me as their kid. Like, they still think of me as like a 10-year-old or something like that. So I think it's that sort of element that's been brought into it as well. Like, the way he refers to him as Master Wayne, and he, still, cleans up, makes his food and things like that. I mean, obviously because he's out, he's his butler and that is kind of his job, but I think it's also more of a parental thing as well. Yeah,
but to Ben's point as well, I mean, he is very much a large child. Like, even to do his detecting in the basement, he still wears his Batman suit. Like, he still has to dress up as a bat
and the
to
voice.
check his computer.
He also does the voice. Have you noticed as well? Like, whenever he's in the basement with, I was noticing it when I was on this rewatch today. I was like, why is he putting the Batman voice on? Alfred knows who he is.
Yeah, so that's when Ben says, like, he's dealing with a child. It's like, yes, you are the Bat. Uh-huh.
Oh God, to have that moment would be amazing. Just have Alfred go, yes, you are the Bat.
In Mask of the Phantasm, at one point, Alfred says something to Batman in the Batcave, and Batman like yells at him, and he's like, "You don't know anything," and jumps in the Batmobile and drives away. Right after Alfred says, "I think I know something. I used to wipe your ass." Essentially, those aren't the exact words, but that like he is a father figure, and they're equals, but certainly he sees the child in Bruce because he's a little bit stuck in that alley for his whole life, and that sometimes Batman does act like a petulant child, and it's hilarious to see a superhero act like a baby.
I mean, it's like the Alfred in the comics as well. He's a badass as well. I remember one of my friends sent me something a while back, and it was like a few comic panels, and it was basically Alfred going into like this criminal's lair looking for Batman, I think, because I think he'd been kidnapped, and he said, you might think that because I'm work with Batman, I will have the same respect for life or something that he has. You will be incorrect. And he's like pulls out a sword or something.
So moving a little bit more on, what did we miss in Adam's episode with the ventriloquist? Like, I feel like we very briefly scratched the surface on that one.
I think Matt kind of nailed it when he said it's got this real 30s gangster movie vibe. Like, they really lean into that because that's, you know, the character. The dummy's name is Scarface. His character talks like an old school gangster. But if I'm being honest, upon rewatch, it feels like it kind of it shoots itself in the foot a little, because it just gets so goofy that it, like, I remember, now maybe it's because I'm a 34-year-old man watching a show that I loved when I was 7, but I remember as a kid being like scared, like thinking like, wow, like this, even as a kid being like, this guy's crazy. Like he's got this split personality, but watching it now, it's just kind of, I don't know. It just sort of it undermines the idea that this villain is really, really dangerous because he's crazy, because his dominant personality is very aware that his other personality is dangerous, but also he's got these henchmen who are comically afraid of this puppet character, when they themselves even talk about how they know that, you know, he's not, that the ventriloquist is the one who's, you know, doing all this, but he's just this weak-willed old man. And I don't know, it came across as like this felt kind of like a throwaway episode, like a bottle episode, where they're like, all right, this is a fun premise, but it's not going to have any far-reaching effects or anything like that. I enjoyed watching it, but that's sort of the feeling I got, that I think this was one of those things where time and memory had been kind to it, but the reality is it was just kind of schlocky. To the point where, like, when it does the bit where like the spinning newspapers are saying headlines, and I'm so conditioned now to think that that's hokey, that I was expecting the last headline to be like a punchline or to be completely unrelated to the first two.
I think one of my favorite jokes with spinning newspapers, I think it's in The Simpsons, where there's like a load of spinning newspapers come up, and then one spins up and says, man hitting head by spinning newspaper,
right,
or something like that. In critical condition in a hospital or something. But yeah, the spinning newspaper thing as well. I was watching it, I think, when the spinning newspaper come off, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, was that the 60s Batman theme a little bit? Because I swear it went diddle-diddle-diddle.
It probably was.
You know, honestly, like the newspapers didn't bother me. The most of that didn't bother me. The only part in the episode that I thought was just a little too cheesy for my taste is him throwing his voice. Is Batman throwing his voice?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
and doing a pitch perfect imitation of the ventriloquist, who he's talked to twice.
Yeah.
And they write it away. They write it away with one line where he's like, "Oh, I trained with the magician Serena, who taught me how to throw my voice."
Zatara.
I was literally going to mention that. Have you ever seen the Honest trailer for the Batman animated series?
No.
It's hilarious because it basically points out that Batman takes like any opportunity to mention the people he's trained with, and it's like, when I train with the magician Zatara, then it cuts to like, when I train with the ninjas and blah 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 blah, or something like. There's like this like super cut of all these people that he's trained with, and it's just, when he said that line in the episode, I just had this immediate flashback, and I just started giggling to myself, and I was like completely taken out. I had to rewind it a little bit.
What's really great about that line is that it's not a throwaway line. He says that he trained with Zatara, which is Zatanna's father, that you see in another episode.
I remember that as well. I remember that episode. I was thinking when I was rewatching, thinking, did that come before this one or after?
It's after. For an animated show, it has surprising continuity and builds.
Well, they had a series Bible. Like in one of the audio commentaries, they actually mention about this series Bible that they had. Like, series Bibles are for TV series like Babylon 5 or Game of Thrones, or these series which are long running stories that, like, it's not self-contained episodic TV, it's serial. Like, that's a series that has a series Bible. Kids Animation doesn't have a series Bible normally, so it's that sort of attention to detail I just think was so good.
So something interesting about the episode with Ventriloquist and Scarface is that it is not the best episode. It also holds like that middle part where, hey, why doesn't Batman just jump through the skylight right now and arrest all of them? It actually answers itself in a very interesting way, because so often, like in the Clayface episodes, he's trying to help Matt Hagen, who's Clayface. In the, I think, Baby Doll episode, where the woman never grows up, she's stuck in a kid's body, he's trying to help her. That Batman in the series and in a lot of the comics becomes not just a guy who runs around the streets punching people, but also kind of like a crime therapist. That the best way to help Ventriloquist is not to just go in there and punch him in the head, but to destroy Scarface. So he comes up with a plan to turn them against Scarface, because if they don't destroy Scarface, they'll still believe that he's powerful. And so, yeah, he punches a bunch of people, and that's great. But in so many of these episodes, he's actively trying to help the people who are just as, like, damaged as he is. And for a children's show, that's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That is a terrific point, and I don't mean to undercut it, but I have to point out that the way they wrote in Scarface being, quote unquote destroyed was hysterical. So like so the way he gets the ventriloquist and Scarface to fight each other is Batman throws his voice as the ventriloquist and they start fighting. But then at one point, Scarface, the dummy, gets thrown against a wall and the ventriloquist gets knocked over, and Batman is like in front of them or something, and one of the henchmen who was knocked out wakes up, picks up a gun, and goes to shoot Batman. Batman jumps out of the way, and the henchman accidentally unloads like 30 rounds into the dummy. And then as soon as he
but the whole mag.
Exactly. And then as soon as he pulls his finger off the trigger, he makes a face like, "Oh no!" Like it was comical. There should have been a shot of him like holding the trigger and then be like, "Oh no!" Like he may as well have been comically trying to unstick the trigger while shooting his body. It was just so silly.
I mean, when I watched it, I picked up on that as well, and like in my head straight away, I was picturing a character like Deadpool doing that or something. Like,
right.
Like fully unloading an entire magazine from a gun and going, "Oh God, sorry,"
and then reloading and doing it again.
Yeah.
But to be fair, and maybe it's because again I haven't watched this series in 25 years, but the suspension of disbelief was so difficult during every crime in this entire episode. Like at the beginning, they knock out a bookie and take his money, and then rather than just running out the door, they put on spikes and climb up a vent to the roof, and then jump 15 to 20 stories down onto a mattress truck, and they're just like, "All right, we're good." And then later, when they rob a boat, they somehow spray a perfectly conical spray of acid to dissolve a perfectly clean circular hole in the boat, and then they just climb in. Like they'd be burning their hands off. I don't know. It was hard to watch.
But it's like when you look at some of the other episodes where they're in massive shootouts and not one person hits anything. I mean, this is the only episode where any bullets land, and the only reason they land is because it's into a dummy.
But can I say, for it just being a dummy, it's still a really violent death.
Well, yeah, that's just the thing.
Oh, yeah.
That struck me. I was looking at it thinking, God, this is like Chucky levels of horror.
Yeah, there's the shot where the doll, after it's been riddled with bullets, it lands like, right in frame with its head all full of holes and its eye is like pitched back.
Do you know what? You get a toothbrush, dip it in red paint, and just like flick specks of red on there, and it's all of a sudden it's horrifically violent. Like the only reason that is not violent is that violent is because there's no blood in it. You put blood in there, and all of a sudden it's like 18 rated horror film or something like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much the show gets away with certain amounts of violence. I know no one is ever allowed to be killed in the show, like not intentionally killed. So like people will fire guns at Lucius Malfoy, or not Lucius Malfoy.
The crossover we all wanted.
The English accent that I'm hearing that's throwing me off. No, Lucius Fox. They don't shoot at him; they shoot at the sign above him, so it falls and hits him in the back. Only if he's behind like a banister or glass. But in Mudslide, where presumably Clayface dies, he can't hold his body together anymore, so he's like falling apart. And at one point, he looks in the mirror and pulls his face down a little bit, and his eye nearly falls out as he melts, and then he presses his head against he's in the subway. He pushes his head against the window as his body just falls apart as like children and women scream and run out of there.
I mean, like when you said Feet of Clay was your choice, I initially thought it was Mudslide, and I thought to myself, oh, that's such a good episode because it's Mudslide is so like tragic at the end as well because he does sort of die. I mean, he comes back later in the series, but for all intents and purposes at that point, he's the only character that really actually dies in the animated series. Like no one else has actually died in it. It's always they get locked up or they go into a coma and they come back out or things like that. But it was always like that always struck me when I was watching that episode. It's that tragic ending as well. Like is it his wife or girlfriend or something like that? Is she's there watching, like going, grab my hands, like it's been a while since I've seen it, but he just sort of like looks up and just like goodbye or something like that, and then just falls off into the water, and it's that sort of like tragic thing. Like when I was watching Feet of Clay, it struck me how close it was in the tone to Heart of Ice on the tragic backstory of the characters. You know that they are consumed by this sort of thing, like with Clayface, it's his looks and things like that. And there's just like like I keep saying the word tragic, but it is. They're very tragic characters, and it makes it so much deeper.
Yeah, Batman's hanging from a cliff with like Clayface hanging from his leg, and yeah, it's not sure if it's his girlfriend, but she's helping him. She's a doctor, and she has to watch as he falls into the water and dissolves. Again, like Cronenberg level body horror stuff. But because he's made of clay and not flesh, they got away with it when in all accounts they shouldn't have. And yeah, the one time I think other than Clayface you might see anyone die was in Mask of the Phantasm. They begged them to let Joker kill one guy, and it's like, okay, no big deal. And if you guys remember the guy who's dead in it, he's like frozen solid, like rigor mortis in a chair with a giant smile on his face with a bomb in his chest. Like when they got the okay to do something, it's like when South Park was given the okay to say shit, and so they said it 156 times. They're like, fine, the Joker can kill one guy, and they're like, great, we're gonna make it the most horrifying thing a child can experience.
Well, and then when they did, I was Batman Beyond the same showrunners as Batman?
Yeah, it was the same one.
It literally the first episode, they're like, nope, villain's gonna fucking get crushed to death. It's happening. He's dead.
We're gonna kind of start wrapping this thing up, but before we do, I feel like we need to bring up a certain group of people that we did not pick any episodes featuring. None of the Bat family was mentioned today, and I kind of want to throw them a little bit of love or hate if you feel that way. We didn't get any Robin, any Batgirl, anybody like any of the support.
I found that quite interesting that nobody picked an episode that had Robin in, and it sort of struck me to that because it was almost like the series started off with, it's just Batman, and then it was almost like they got a bit of pressure from Warner's, I believe, to bring Robin in, but they didn't bring him in like a way that you would describe him arriving. He just all of a sudden just appeared as if he'd been there all along.
Yeah, they just kind of do sort of how they do it in the comics, where if he's not there, you just assume he's out doing his own thing, and every now and then they work together. Yeah. But I always liked Dick Grayson in the show. I always thought he was really kind of fun thing, and I felt like a lot of people really started hating Robin during the animated series, and I never really understood why.
I just think it was that sort of cheesy thing of it. I think people sort of made it a bit more childish having Robin in, because like if you look at the Tim Burton Batman films, for example, there's no Robin there, and they're sort of seen as like quite dark and things like that. And then when you go to Batman Forever, and Robin comes in, you know, it starts to get a bit more comical and campy. But that's not just because of Robin's presence, but I think a lot of people maybe attribute it to Robin's presence that it became campy.
I think the reason they brought Robin in is the same reason they started to bring him in and like the Batmite in the comics, was that people were at DC Comics or Warner Brothers eventually were afraid that children wouldn't be able to associate with an adult like Batman, that they needed their own hero to like get behind. And yeah, when you bring in Robin, he's got a lot of quips and he's dressed not quite as cool. And so, yeah, like he works well enough. And I was watching, I think it was The Mechanic last night, where he's in the car with Batman when they're chasing some thugs that are hired by the Penguin. And like, he's fine in it. I think it was just out of pressure to not let kids lose interest in the show and put a child in. And it's just one of the many mistakes that are often made like that, thinking that you somehow have to cater to children to get them to care.
Yeah, that's fair. I always liked Batgirl more than Robin in the show. I always thought she was more interesting. She's not in it quite as much, but when she pops up, I always think she's really entertaining.
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed Batgirl more. Actually, I enjoyed what they did with Tim Drake. So, like, when they eventually they sort of like they change the animation style of it, and like simplify it a bit more. In I think it's seasons 3 and 4.
Did they change the name too to like the New Adventures or something?
Something like that, yeah. And Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing, and they bring in Tim Drake as Robin, and it's like the Tim Drake Robin is like an amalgamation of Jason Todd and Tim Drake. So he's like Red Robin in the series and whatnot, and I kind of found him a bit more interesting. Because we actually get a proper introduction, and we are actually, you know, we have set up an explanation about this character a little bit more. But again, it was still that just like little, you know, you got a kid there fighting crime, and it always takes me out of it a little bit. There's that like the ludicrousness of having this like 12-year-old kid fighting crime.
Gee Willikers, Batman.
Yeah, I guess it's funny you mentioned it. Did always kind of have like a Scrappy Doo feel to me.
Yeah,
that sort of like it just I don't need a child to do this for me.
It's just that ludicrous idea, isn't it? Of like, you know, oh, kids can't relate to adults, so let's put a kid in. Well, they don't relate to adults or kids or anything. They relate to characters. You know, I related to Batman.
And we've already discussed earlier in the episode, Batman basically is a kid.
Yeah.
Right. He's a man-child.
Yeah, so we didn't need it. But I did think it was kind of interesting. They show up a lot, and we never did an episode with them, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
There's something I'd like to hit on in terms of the design, because we've talked about it in general, but there's something really interesting that is sometimes mentioned in like review videos. But each episode is made incredibly cheaply and often on, you know, like black construction paper. And so to save money on him to draw a lot, things are set at night and also in like dark rooms. So I think it was the episode with Ventriloquist and Scarface where like Commissioner Gordon is hanging out in his office and Batman comes in, and the only things that are animated in that whole scene are the two people, a desk, a lamp, and two windows, and the rest of it just falls off to blackness.
Yeah.
And then I think later in that same episode when Batman goes to talk to Rhino, there's like a lighting change where a police car pulls up and like turns on their searchlight. And you never saw that in shows then, and even not like children's animated shows now, that there's like things that they're doing interesting in terms of lighting or using their limitations of we can't afford to draw everything. So they turned it into the show's great success of making it dark and moody instead of trying to like do things less than they would want to. So like in Feet of Clay, there's a couple scenes that like the animation isn't quite up to standard, and you know, you just sort of like roll with it. But then later when Clayface is freaking out, throwing his clay fists into all the TVs, and he starts to become all these versions of himself, the animation goes from like, yeah, passable to incredible as he like morphs and like liquefies in front of them. And so they took the little bit of money that they had for the episode and said like, just get everything good enough to make this other scene that is so powerful and so horrifying really stick with you, because like that's the important crux of the episode. And they did the same thing for Mask of the Phantasm. They gave them a little bit more money than they did for a normal episode and made it 4 times as long. It's just incredible what they did with very little money to make the show work as well as it did.
Well, especially because as kids, we never questioned it. If it was made cheaply and poorly, we would have all noticed, and it would have lost us. But like they used what they had so well that we all thought this was the best thing ever made.
I mean, it's like the entire. I was wondering if we'd get a chance to sort of discuss the sort of like the general aesthetic of the show. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because the doing it on black paper was a cost cutting method, but it was also a bit of a stylistic choice as well, because it was, Batman is a night character, so let's have like the base of each of these frames is black, and then add colour to it. And just like the general aesthetic of like Gotham City is very, like the whole series looks like it's in the 30s, but it's got modern technology as well. It's this weird amalgamation of all these different things. Like all the TVs are black and white. The cars are very old, but then you've got these almost, it's like sort of weirdly what in the 30s people would picture as futuristic helicopters and things like that. These big, massive sort of police helicopters, and all this interesting sort of technology and stuff like that. So it's this weird mishmash of all these different elements. Like you've got 30s and modern day, and Gothic structures, and it was very distinctive. Like you could be channel hopping, and you could channel hop onto Batman, and pretty much, even if Batman was not on screen, you would know that it was the animated series of Batman just from the general look of it. And I think that was, in using like these cost-cutting measures and the general design as well, I think they created a very distinct look that it was just like, very, very apparent straight away that this is Batman.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also love that in the opening credits that not one time does it say Batman as well. It doesn't. You see Batman, but the title Batman itself, the words never go on screen, because nobody knows. Nobody needs to be told that you're watching Batman when you see Batman.
Oh, that's very true.
I hadn't even picked up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's like that's something like no one, like, you don't pick up on it until it's pointed out to you, and you go, oh yeah, it doesn't say Batman anywhere.
I don't think I've ever noticed that. But we've been talking for quite a while, and I have a wife who's going to be very mad if I keep talking for too much longer and I don't help her with our crazy child. So we should probably start wrapping things up here. Do we have any final thoughts on this show? Really quick. Anything that we totally missed you want to say as a farewell before we say goodbye?
I was going to say, if anyone hasn't seen it, they should give it a shot.
I find it hard to believe that nobody's seen it, like people haven't seen it, but that's very obviously a possibility. So yes, you should absolutely give it a shot. It's fantastic. If you like Batman, and if you don't, you should still give it a shot. But if you like Batman, you haven't watched it, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, like one of my, I've got like 3 or 4 very early memories. Like one of them's to do with Star Trek, one of them's to do with the Kevin Costner Robin Hood film, and the other thing is this series. It's one of my earliest memories is watching this on, I think it was a weekday afternoon in the middle of the summer holidays, and the only reason I know it was the summer holidays because I was at my nana and granddad's. And I was watching it on this tiny TV they had in their kitchen/dining room thing, which also had a TV and some chairs, and it was a very weird setup in the house. I just remember watching it and just being like, it was the first episode. It was on Leather Wings, and I remember seeing that episode. Like it's like a really weirdly vivid memory, and it just stuck with me. And it's always one of those things where it's like, I always think about, whenever I watch that episode, I always think about sitting on my granddad's spinny chair, it's this leather chair that which is like it was like a recliner thing as well, and like just watching it for the first time, and just being like completely blown away.
So you're watching On Leather Wings on leather chairs?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, was there any other big farewell? Give it a shot. Anything else that we missed?
I just like to point out that it's like the pinnacle of 90s television, and you mentioned how it's got a mix of old and new technology, but I think the most 90s moment is when, in the episode I watched, Commissioner Gordon gives Batman a videotape, and he says a home video enthusiast was able to record their getaway, and Batman takes this VHS tape back to his house and watches this improbably high-res video, and he goes, oh, they're wearing masks and gloves, and we can't identify them. And then in slow motion, one of the characters rips his clothes, and there's a tattoo, and he goes, aha, and then he searches some sort of online criminal tattoo database. So just seeing the two technologies side to side is maybe the most 90s Batman moment that could have ever possibly occurred. So
I actually made a little note about that because I did a couple of bullet points, so I'd make sure there was something to talk about. And I made a point on that, which is just more Detective Batman. And it's just the ludicrous, like, there's one of the other episodes he puts together a photo fit, like like the putting together the eyes and like basically making the face up, and then searches an online criminal database as well of all criminals, and it's like, yes, it's this guy. Oh, I know this guy as well. I remember him. It's like
that was in Feats of Clay, I believe.
That's it, yeah, because it's the guy with the police band headset thing.
Okay, cool. So let's do plugs, and then we'll start heading out. For me, always check out everything at athpod.com. That is including us, Behind the Hype, Samwise, Damage Boost, Demon Days. Yeah, that's all of us. And then all of our articles at athpod.com. Matt, what about you?
Articles at athpod.com. I've got my Pandemic Picks series, which is it's been picked up and embraced by so many of you guys, which is awesome. Just like I saw like someone post like they just watched something the other day and they're gonna write a pandemic pick about it. It's like, oh, this is amazing. I've started something. And my Heat article that I was talking about back in fucking January or something is like finally went live last week. And I was like reading through it just on like just giving it, because I always read through them just to make sure that I've not missed something, because I annoyingly I'll read through it about 50 times. And then as soon as it goes live, I'll read through it and pick up and think, oh, shit. But I was reading through it and like I don't very often do this because I'm not that big-headed, but I actually got to the end of like, that was a really good article. And sort of forgotten that I'd actually written it. I don't know if it's just the time that had passed or something, but I was thinking that was actually a really good article. And,
I think I told you guys I had to force myself to stop writing because
yeah.
I was like 5 pages in and I'm like, I can keep writing about this, but it's getting ridiculously long. I need to wrap this up now because there's just so much to talk about in it. And yeah, so anyway, I've talked for about 15 minutes now, so I'm gonna stop sucking my own cock there.
Lovely.
you can cut that bit out if you want.
Absolutely never. Adam, what about you? What are you plugging these days? Do you have anything to plug?
I don't have anything to plug of my own. I guess if you need some film or video colored, let me know. Otherwise, check out Hey Riddle Riddle. It's the greatest podcast ever made. No offense, Bryan.
Thank you.
It's a riddle podcast by 3 Chicago improvisers, and it is consistently the funniest thing you'll ever listen to. So check it out. Hey Riddle Riddle.
I'll check it out. Ben, what multitude of things are you working on that you can plug right now?
Well, as a freelance DP and gaffer in Chicago, there's not a ton of work right now because of the virus. So I have written a new short script every day, except Sundays, for the last 4 weeks. So I have 26 new short scripts that are ready to go. Wow. But hey, if you're looking for a DP in Chicago or a gaffer, benkurstindp.com, as well as I wrote and shot a feature a couple years ago called Chrysalis about a virus that goes around the world and kills most of the people, and it takes place 25 years afterwards. The website is therestaredead.com. It's super uplifting and very topical.
Wait a minute, that sounds familiar.
It is very good, though. I don't think I've ever told you that, Ben. That movie's fantastic. You guys made quite a thing there.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again one day.
What about your art? Do you have anything going on with that right now?
I've started, so Dime a Dozen is finished, where I collected nearly 9,000 drug bags and put them together into art pieces. That one's been done for a while. It's still showing in different galleries. I've started a new one that I'm kind of mum's the word on, but I am collecting more found objects to make into pieces, and I already have hundreds and hundreds of what I need to create this new art piece. So keep an eye out for that the next year or two, depending on how many of these things I can find.
Very excited to see where that goes. If you haven't seen his other stuff, I highly recommend you check it out.
Yeah, and that website is benkurstin.com, and you can see all the drug bag pieces there.
So thank you guys so much for coming out. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to come on.
Yeah, the guilt just won't let me do it any other way. I'm just gonna keep taking shots at Matt from here on out.
Yeah, and even if it had, I think I would have kicked your ass the next time I'm in LA.
Well, that's gonna be a while. I'm not worried about it, but you can probably hear my son freaking out right now, so I should probably say bye. So I'm gonna say bye. Bye.
Batman.